Hey guys, Infidel 1258 here. Today I'm going to speak to you about the best cards that I have, the best summoners and monsters. I want to talk, I guess, the evolution of the meta, but I'm going to use it within the context of the data that I've been receiving from SPLINTERCOACH.com. SPLINTERCOACH.com is a website that tracks your personalized battle history, and for $5 a month, it's going to unlock a lot of errors you're making, as well as just interesting pieces of data that are going to be fun to look at. So I strongly recommend you check them out and give them a chance. $5 a month, 17 cents a day, splintercoach.com. But yeah, I want to look at the data that I've been developing through my time with it now, which is like about a month and a half of using this all the time. And I'm starting to see trends that I think are worth checking in on and sharing with you. So we'll be looking at cards. I want to talk about, let's say, the 3 best summoners that I'm feeling within my deck. I want to deep dive on each of them and see how they're winning, so you can see that and ask the question, well, maybe I don't have that summoner, but I've got those monsters. So if I just acquire that summoner, I might be able to replicate what Dwayne's doing. So it'll be like hopefully practical ways you can improve your deck by looking at 3 of the best summoners I've got access to, as well as 3 of the best monsters that I have access to. And I think that's going to be an interesting benchmark for me to maybe share how the data has revealed interesting things to me. And so yeah, splintercoach.com, check them out. And there's definitely interesting things I've noticed in here as I've begun using it. It's been, like I say, a month and a half now, I think, roughly, or maybe it's even closer to 2 months now that I've been accessing Splinter Coach. And as you can see, my lifetime record, 512 and 501 losses, just over 500 in my rank. The current month, I'm 131 and 122, so doing better this month than last month. And that's interesting because the month is, I guess, the season is very nearly over. The record seems to really get better and better and better at the beginning of the season, while I'm clawing my way into a high position, and then it gets worse and worse and worse as I fight for position at the highest level of whatever rank I'm capping at. If you play in gold, I bet that's true. If you play in diamond, it's still true. If you play in champ, it's still true. So it's like, it's easy to fight the middle of the pack if you've got a decent deck and you're good at the game. It gets hard to fight and maintain that high level of win rate and success when you get into those high levels, fighting for the leaderboard of whatever rank you're capable of reaching. And that's where I find the data has shown me, you know, I'll get a higher win rate at the beginning of a season, and then it'll start tapering off as I get toward an end of a season because of that reason I just said. That's something that right there is just like an element of what I've learned from the data recently, and I'm appreciative of that. Then, like I say, there's lots of ways to break it down. You can look at whatever splinter you're into. You can look at, you know, summoners or monsters. You can look at overall lifetime, you know, percentage wins or most played. Totally different avenues with which to analyze the data, but just quickly, summoners played. It's very interesting to see how often I rely on Kelly Frendel. And originally the data wasn't so great for Kelly with me. I was doing some things wrong. But look at this. The most frequently played summoner over 2 months now. 130, 140 battles almost. And yes, we're slightly below 500. But man, that's very reliable. This is a rare summoner that's super affordable and yet is being played in so many battles. That means a lot. As a card collector who can't afford every card, we should be diligent about recognizing the monsters which maximize the usefulness to us, that open the most opportunities of playability to us. So if you're playing in modern primarily, you might want some alphas and betas cards because you like them, because you think they're cool, because you think they're going to appreciate. But then they have no usefulness to you in modern. They're just like a collector edition. So again, this idea of when you're investing money into cards, think first what is not just what you want, but both simultaneously what you want and what you most often can use. Because sometimes a card like Kelia, you're going to be able to play a ton. And then simultaneously, there's cards that you can play a ton and that are overpowered. We might show some of those here today. I'm saying Kelia is, you're going to get tons of use out of it. If you don't already have Kelia, this has to be one of those summoners that you're picking up. I'm pretty sure most of you will. The price points on Kelia these days, so reasonable, man. So very reasonable. There she is. Regular foil, $1.10 per unit. You know, you're talking $120 for a max copy. No, look at that. Yeah, $122 for a max copy. Amazing summoner. So functional, versatile in so many ways. The 4 mana cap is great. The kit is amazing. And for a rare summoner, for that to be played as often as it is and be as successful as it has been is important. How is it? Let's have a peek at how it's winning. Let's click on Kelia. 68 and 74. Like I said, about 140 matches. Here we have the partners that we're utilizing. These are the 5 most frequently played cards. My question to you is, are you playing at Diamond or Champion? Second, if you don't have Kelia, do you have these cards already? If you have these cards and you lack Kelia, this is one of the summoners you need to have. This is just an absolute, it's a beast because of how frequently you can use it. It's a beast because of how inexpensive it is when you look at the summoners that are available. Yes, there's cheaper. All these cards above it are cheaper, but there's not much that's better than it, and there's nothing that's better than it. You're going to be playing it as frequently as this. And it's a modern card, so that makes it even more applicable to most of us. So there's just so many reasons why Frendel is on this list here. And especially if you've got these cards already. But even these cards, look at these cards. We're talking, this one's going to be a little bit older, a little bit more expensive. But these are all relatively new, relatively inexpensive. Bakshir, I bet you're like the quote-unquote expensive one here. Bandits, practically nothing. 1 penny each. You're talking $4 for a max copy bandit. Deep Lurker, a bit more expensive. $40 for a max copy, 45 maybe. Merdali Guardian, you know, yeah, we're getting a little expensive as you recognize, but you need 115 copies. So it's actually not that much. Is that $20? 20, 21, $22-ish? Such a good card. So this card is so amazing. It's probably my favorite healer in the game. And I think this is the Merdali Guardian is a large reason why Kelia is as commonly successful as it is, because the Merdali Guardian, not only is it 3 mana, which is so cheap, not only does it have tank heal, which is so important, but it also has repair. And because Kelia offers an armor to your team, it's got something to repair. It's got a tank heal to put to work. This double heal, tank heal, and then repair in my mind, two sustains, 2 resiliency, restoration type abilities. And then the strengthen, and the strengthen can be making your tank heal be even more effective, because it might mean 1 more heal point, depending on how many hit points your tank has. That strengthen can be really, really huge. This card is absolutely amazing. $23 right there. So if you have these cards, what were the other ones? The other one was Bakjira and Kelp. And you might play in modern only, and therefore Kelp, I don't think Kelp's an Untamed, I believe. So this is still available, but soon won't be. But Bakjira is definitely a modern card. I'm assuming most people play modern, especially most people who are probably watching the channel. But then again, maybe I'm wrong. What was the other card? Kelp Initiate, expensive. You're talking $115 for a max copy. Such a great card, though. You know, for what this thing does, $135 for a max copy. The huge hit points, 9 hit points, triage and cleanse. Such a powerful card. 2 mana. It's a tank with 2 mana. It's an amazing card. And then lastly, Bakshir, there he is. $6, like I said, roughly $6 per pop. You're talking $59 for a max copy of this amazing card. Such an impressive tank. It's so resilient with these 16 hit points. And again, slap an armor on it. Merdali Guardian is going to drop a 5 heal on this thing and an armor repair. So if this is your kit and you lack this card, you need to have it. This is one of the summoners that is absolutely must have for the reasons explained. It's successful in so many ways. The kit partners so well with the monsters it uses. The Deep Lurker is a beast, and while it's hidden behind these other cards that have, you know, so much sustainability, the Deep Lurker just puts pain, puts in work. And okay, let's go back. So Kalia right up there, and then we go. Look at this data. I'm surprised how this has really grown and grown and grown to be my #2 played summoner, and carrying the 500 record. It's not dominating, but it's got to be in contention now. Actually, it turns out it's strong, man. It's found. We found the niche, and it's just the frequency of how often it's being played needs to scream. If you don't have it, take it seriously. And maybe you don't, because it is legendary. So it's like probably $10 a pop. You're talking, you know, $110. Maybe you don't have it. If you don't, it's a strong card. Immortalis is probably a bigger one, a more favored one, even though it's got fewer battles, only marginally. I love this card. I've grown to think it's really one of the best summoners in the game, especially from the legendary standpoint, especially from the modern leagues. But even still, he's not even my second recommendation. My second recommendation is going to be Lily Shieldpaw. Look at this record, 51 and 32. Now, again, it has fewer battles faced than the Conqueror or the Immortalis, but that percentage of victory is that's dominant, man. That's downright dominant. 2/3 of games played with this thing are won. So, and it being Dragon introduces so many new synergies that are potentially really, you know, really successful. So there's just a lot of versatility, because maybe sometimes so with, you know, Dragon, if Dragon's available, you might have strong cards from the green or the red or the blue Splinter, but now you can incorporate those under the blanket of Dragon. And so that's why my #2 is going to be Lily Shieldpaw. And again, you know, let's look at the top 5 and just see how I'm winning with it. And you'll see some of these cards that, again, if you've got access to these already and you lack Lily, don't sleep on Lily Shieldpaw. This card is exceptional. It's not good. It's exceptional. To win 600, right? 614 is a crazy batting average. Like this is like a strong, like lifetime performance. Let's look over the last month. See if it's slightly more modest, but only slightly. Let's see where it wins. Mana cap. I bet it's in the mid range, right? The 29. Look at that. That's a solid win rate. So 0 at the lowest. And here we go. Strong performance. Wow. Huge performance in the 30 to 39 range. And even at the 40 to 49, I bet we drop off over here. 50 to 60. Nope. Still kicking. Dude, this thing wins at every level except for the lowest and the absolute highest. And I guess it's because at the absolute, you probably at the lowest 12 mana cap, you need to have like a 3 mana summoner or a 2 mana summoner to really maximize your mana efficiency. And then at the 99, this is where I'm going to be facing off against the best decks in the game. I play in Champion. So the best teams, the best compositions, the best cards are available to my enemy. And we're talking things like Byzantine Kitty. We're talking things like Jotun. And then all of the craziest synergies that you can possibly dream up are available in those contexts. And therefore, you can see that's where it's not going to be so dominant. But it absolutely is cruising at everything from 60 down to 20. It's just an absolute beast. This card's amazing. And it becomes really amazing when you have cards like Almo Cambio that can slip into the first position and be such a devastating tank. Why is it devastating? Huge hit points. 16 hit points. That means you're going to heal 5 hit points every time you heal this thing. And then again, the speed, and if you can bring speed augmentation, you're going to get that evasiveness. 6 is a great, like one of the fastest monsters, just bare bones, before any manipulation. And then you got phase in conjunction with that. So that partnership is going to mean evasiveness, not just from archery and melee, but also potentially even the magic. Then when things do land, you're going to throw it back at them. And now with Amplify being prevalent, it's possible to really make your enemies regret shooting you at all. If they don't finish you, and they will struggle to finish you because of your phase and your speed, they are just going to constantly kill themselves. So this is a very, very pivotal card in the context of Lily Shieldpaw. And then, of course, cards like Assure Constantia are as well, because you're going to partner it in that second position so that it can be whoever your tank is. It can prevent blast damage from being a factor. It can have that res and that tank heal. And so if you don't have Lily Shieldpaw, it's one of the best summoners in the game. And I mean across all, packs. I'm including Kitty in this conversation. I'm including Yoden and Llama. I'm not necessarily saying it's better. In fact, I'm not saying it's better. I'm saying it's in that same realm. It's in that same game of competitiveness. It's that good. And if you don't have it, you need to be taking it seriously. And the value is not even that much. But then part of deciding whether you are ready to, take this step would be, are you fighting in Diamond Champion? Okay, then this data is for you. If you already have Almo Cambio, this is definitely your card. If you already have Assure Constantia and not Shieldpaw, I mean, that is a match made in heaven. This is the trio here. But then this helps too for so many reasons, but the blind synergizes with the evasiveness. The blast and scatter is so great because if your opponent Shieldpaws you or taunts you, well, you're just going to go back. You're going to shoot the backlines anyways. And then again, resurrect, heal, evasiveness, speed manipulation, so good. And Bakjira is going to be great as an alternative to Cambio when maybe no neutrals are available. You're going to drop the Bakjira in that first. Again, so resilient. So because you've got with Shieldpaw the camo, you need to have that massive tank. So if you have these cards and you don't have Shieldpaw, man, this card you need this summoner, and it is so worth it. The amount it gets played, and yet the minimal cost that it is currently. Like, look, 5th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6th cheapest. Those are legendary specifically, but even if you look at it this way, like we talked about how Kelly is $120 for a max copy. I bet Shieldpaw. Let's go back. Shieldpaw is $12 per times. So we're talking roughly the same price as a maxed out Kelly or Frendel. And this had a way better win rate. Now, it was played in fewer games, so that should be calculated based on what you're doing and aiming at doing. But it's not an expensive summoner. It's not, because there's so many of the chaos packs. So Shieldpaw, make it happen. So amazing. And then even just quickly, some of those, let's look at Almo, and Almo is not even that expensive anymore. Almo Cambio, which is one of those pivotal tanks that we just referred to in the context of Shieldpaw. Certainly not cheap. $30. There it is, $300 for a max copy. But this card used to be, I'm going to say $50 a BCX as opposed to 30. Practically half price. And then what was the other one? Bakjira. We already talked about that, $6 a pop. Assure Constantia. Let's have a peek at her quickly. It's again not cheap. That's one of the more expensive promos, I think. $35, I bet. There she is, $27. So even her price has come down. Again, not cheap, $300. So this is not for the faint of heart. But again, if you're playing at the high, I'm playing in champion levels, like Champ 2, I think right now. So, I mean, I'm facing the best teams in this game, and yet I'm winning at the high 2/3 of my battles with this comp. So take it seriously. That's number 2, Lily Shieldpaw. And one more summoner before we move into monsters. Quixodevious is a strong contender, and if you can't afford kind of what Shieldpaw will do, because recognize that Shieldpaw is doing one thing, but Quix can do a totally different thing. Lily Shieldpaw, one of the pivotal monsters is the Almo. If you don't have the Almo, the Bakjira. Asher Constantia is definitely part of the picture. Those are expensive cards, but Quicks is a totally different vibe. We could, and I would say if you can't do what I just described with the Shield Paw, come over and look at Quicks. I'm not going to say both of them, but I'm saying if you can't do one, then the other. Like this is a totally different vibe. And you're looking lower mana matches. You're putting in partners that like the Dr. Blight, which is such a crazy good card and might even be on the monster list. But cards like speed manipulation, like such powerful, strong plays can happen when you get into this sort of range because of the ability to be killing your enemy before they kill you. So if for a bit cheaper, probably this is a path. The Quicks is going to be roughly the same price, I think, as maybe it's a bit cheaper. Let's quickly look. Quicks is so about the same price. I mean, yeah, 20% cheaper, but that's not the biggest. That's not a big deal when we're talking 120 bucks or $100. I mean, this is a cheap card. That's a cheap card. I love them both, but I'm saying if you are actioning one or the other, I'd go Shield Paw. And then let's go back and let's try and find that third. Summoner. I think it probably has to be Thaddeus. I didn't prepare these remarks, so I'm just looking at the data and like remembering. But Astral Entity has to be in the consideration too. So it's either Shield Paw or Devious as number 2, and number 3 it's either Thaddeus or Astral Entity. Now, Astral Entity, where'd he go? Astral Entity is 19 and 8, which is a crazy 700 win rate, right? That's absolutely bananas. It's so good, and Astral Entity is very, very inexpensive. Thaddeus Brood is 40 and 28, so played way more often. And that's important when we're looking at building a deck that's maximally efficient because you only have so many dollars with which to fund it. So we're going to go with Thaddeus. My preference for the top 3 here is Kelia in this order. Kelia number 1, number 2, Lily Shieldpaw number 3, Thaddeus Brood. But if for whatever reason, some of the partnerships that I've described, some of the synergies with the monsters aren't available to you, or certain monsters cost a lot like Alamo, then maybe you go with Quicks the Devious instead as your number 2. And I'd say if the Thaddeus team isn't for you, then maybe Astral Entity would be. But I think probably the Thaddeus is going to be the more affordable of the Death Splinter plays. Let's have a peek at what's happening over here. Very, very low mana stuff. This is Weaken, Redemption, Weaken. This is like the triple Weaken. 1 minus heart, 1 minus heart, 3 minus hearts. And you can, and then throw the slime ball in the first position and you can redemption your way into victory. Plus the Shadowy Presence for the 1 mana 7 hit point shield. I say 7 because it's got the strengthen. So this is a large part of how I win so often with Thaddeus. If you don't have the Dr. Blight, for instance, I don't know if you're going to be able to replicate what I'm doing over here, but this is a very, very strong summoner. This is the second, in my mind, this is the second best rare summoner from the Chaos Legion expansion. And I think you should need to take it seriously. If we look at mana cap, I bet it's mostly these super low ones. Look at that, 16 and 8 from that 12 to 19. And then here we are at 8 and 8 at 20 to 29. That's a respectable data here. So, I mean, it holds its own at every tier. It holds its own, but it excels at the lowest mana cap. That's what you want. Because those low mana cap ones, if you don't have an answer that's a 3 or 4 mana summoner, it's hard to compete. So you need to have options with the low mana matches, but then for it also to have flexibility and applicability and respectability at higher mana caps is an indication of a real quality summoner. This summoner is literally one of the top 2 in my mind from Chaos Legion. And that's saying a lot because the Chaos Legion summoners are tough, man. Quicks or not, yeah, Quicks. That's not who I wanted to say though. Yeah, Chaos Legion. Boom. Boom. Look at these summoners. Sloan is for the price I'm interested. Tarsa same. But I mean, Thaddeus is inexpensive and wins. Obsidian is inexpensive and is very strong and needs to be considered in the conversation. But it's definitely Kelia as number one in terms of its applicability, and it's relative inexpensive. Now it's double the price of a card like General Sloan, but it's way better than General Sloan. It's almost double the price of Tarsa, but again, I think it's so much stronger than Tarsa. But Brood and Frendel are both exceptional, and yet Brood is really inexpensive. Really inexpensive for what it can represent. Astral Entity, we talked about that one as an option. It's 110, 120 bucks to get that max copy. The Brood is going to be, look at that, $75 to get a max level Brood. And the card wins, and it wins at every level. So those are my three summoners, and with a couple options. If you don't like maybe Brood, then you go Astral. And if you don't like Lily Shieldpaw, you go Quicks. Let's scoot over to monsters, and we'll choose the top three. I gotta say, just right out of the gate, Dr. Blight. Like, I don't even, just knowing what I already know, seeing it there at the top with the number of played matches, looking at that win rate, 130 wins and 108 losses. This thing fits into every scenario. Let's click on it and look at the data. Is it a cheap card? No. But you can and will play and win with this thing so often. Let's look at this mana cap. Of course it works in the lowest. Look at that, 25 and 15. There we go. Very strongly competitive in those mid tiers too. Very competitive in the mid tiers. Oh, this thing at every level. Oops. Every single level. Winning or the only one is that 99 again, because my opponent in this one battle probably had, 75 mana on the field, and then I threw out a Dr. Blight. But every single mana cap, 50 to 60, crushing it. 40 to 49, crushing it. 30 to 39, crushing. Every level. And then exceptional at the lowest mana cap. Because this thing turns into a tank by the time it's at that front due to the scavenge. The poison's powerful. The camo keeps it sustained. The affliction is like ends so many main sort of tanks with the self-heal, right? So exceptional card. I don't need to say anything more. Dr. Blight is the number one of the three monsters that I think you need to have if you don't already have. Is it expensive? Yes, it is. Is it worth every penny? Yes, it is. Dr. Blight. How much are you going for these days? I bet it's like even relatively inexpensive considering the success rate I just depicted. $390 is not a cheap card. I get that most people don't even have $390 to put into a full deck of cards. But if you want an exceptional deck to play at the highest levels of Splinterlands, this is a card that you almost cannot do without. So I mean, rent it if you need to rent it because you don't have that money. Or if you're playing at a lower level, that's possible. Maybe you just get a level 2 or level 3, and then you're not putting nearly as much money into it. I would say that the scavenge at gold level makes this thing, like, takes it from good to broken. That's where you start getting at 10 hit points, 12 hit points by the time this thing's in the first spot. And the weaken is clutch for, niche purposes like I described, but at level 3 you're getting that second damage. You've still got the poison, the affliction, the camo, and now scavenge. So gold tier to me, is where it really goes from good to broken. And but I'm saying regardless of where you're at, I feel as though that is the most important single monster that has the most direct impact to my success in this game. I love how often the supply runner is played. Look at this. Look at the distant second. Like, we're 230 matches to 160. That's a huge difference. This is a neutral card. This is a neutral card. This card is played so... Dr. Blight is played so often. Supply runner is played so often also, but nothing compared to Dr. Blight. The Dr. Blight resounding #1 must-have monster card. The Ply Runner in a conversation for its usefulness because of its neutrality, because the speed is so important, because the strengthen's key. It's an amazing card, but I'm going to pass on that in terms of which ones I would recommend need to be considered. I think for the same reasons I already described with Summoners, Almo Cambio is #2. Look at this win rate, and it's such a beastly tank. It's so fast and evasive. Speed is still really critical in the meta of Splinterlands right now. And so Almo Cambio with 66 wins and 50 losses and a 569 win record, that tells me that this card for that $300, if you can afford that, is a must-have. If you want to compete at the dime and the champion levels, this is a must-have card. It'll synergize with what I already described around the Lily Shield Paw, or even the probably even with Kelly Friendle, because of the speed and the opportunity in that situation. Bok Jira is like a strong contender for number 3. So is Deep Lurker, to be honest. They're played all the time. They win frequently. They have a lot of usefulness apart from just, you know, that blue team, because again, you can partner with Dragon. But I'm not certain about those. I want to have a peek at what else we got here. Artemis is a strong contender. Ooh, I love Artemis. No, I think maybe that is. Ooh, Ashur. We already talked about Ashur. Look at that win rate. 603. Let's quickly... It might be Ashur Constantia. Let's look at win percentage. So some of this is a bit... there's a lack of sample size with which to really base something like this. This is great. Cockatrice is a great card. But, if I play another 100 matches, it's not going to be 105-0. It'll be, this will lose eventually. Same with Bila the Radiant and Prismologist. I'm just not playing enough with it. So if we scroll down, though, we'll see some really successful cards that we play a lot, not just once or twice. Runemaster Kai, when it goes in, wins. Interesting. Efreet Elder is probably one of the things that benefits from the speed of the Yasek, Conqueror Yasek, because it's got phase and last stand, and it goes into a really fast place for a 12 mana cap. Interesting. I want to see. Here we go. Look at this. Crustacean King, 20-7. Interesting. But if you don't play in Wild, obviously not interesting. Harklaw, surprisingly successful in niche situations. Wood Nymph, again, if you're in that Wild, obviously very successful. Low mana cap, very, very successful. Undead Priest, look at this. This is part of what I talked about with the Thaddeus Brood, but I don't think Undead Priest is particularly cheap. I think it might be quite expensive, and it is a wild card, so no, not that expensive. $115, $140. Okay, my bad. Yeah, I mean, not cheap. Very successful though, and I would argue you don't really need a max copy. What you need is the weaken and the slow, which means you need 21 BCX. Maybe you spend 20 or $30 to get there with the high bids, or just plucking them off one at a time. Look at this. Right now you could go bulk buy. Let's say you wanted 21 of them. You're looking at $30. So $30 to make the weaken and the slow, which is going to open the door with you in the context of the Thaddeus Brood to replicate some of what I've been doing. Then you want one of the redemptions. Slime Ball is a real winner, but you got to get it up to here for 100 BCX, which is $60 for a max copy, or you go bulk buy. $15 to get that redemption. So you could replicate a lot of what I've showed you with respect to Thaddeus Brood and also the Death Team, and have a lot of success. The Undead Priest, not too expensive. I think it was $30 to get that weaken and the slow, and then the Slime Ball, $15 to get that redemption. So maybe look at that. But if you already have those, that is also another question. Like, that maybe pushes you towards Thaddeus Brood. No. Shadowy Presence, 32 and 17. How much is the Presence? Shadowy Presence is a card I love, whether it's in the context of the redemption battle that I described, or if it's in a melee specific, you know, I want to lean into a main tank, secondary tank. Maybe it's Lord of Darkness, Pegasus in the first and second, Shadowy Presence in the third, and then I'll do sneak attack, Undead Badger is a sneaker. There's a skeleton, I forget his name, and maybe Elven Cutthroat. That's 3 different sneak attack monsters. 1 Inspire on the Shadowy Presence, plus a Strengthen. So this card's exceptional. There's a max copy right there for 68 bucks. Great card, and it wins. It wins and it wins and it wins. But you might not be in Wild. If you're not in Wild, obviously take that with a grain of salt. Look at the Rooney. Rooney crushes it too, man. Rooney. But you're talking 700 bucks for a Rooney. So, oh, here we go, dude. Merdali Guardian. We talked about it already. And I look at this data. 52 wins and 29 losses. Yes, that's it right there. I'm sure there's lots of other tempting cards like Scale Doctor, Phantom Soldier, lots of Venator Kinjo, lots of tempting Ashur Constantio. Maybe that's your pick because of the win rate. Plus it works with the Almo, which I already described. But man, gotta give a shout out to the Merdali Guardian. So is that 3? Merdali Guardian played. Dr. Blight is a resounding number 1. Almo would be, if you can afford it, that's my number 2. And number 3 is that Merdali Guardian. Win rate's amazing, so powerful and successful, works so amazingly well with the Kelia. And if you can afford it, Ashur Constantia as like a number 4. They're by no means the only amazing cards that the data is showing me here, but they are amazing and they synergize well to perhaps, though that would create like a strong dragon, death, and water teams. Just those few summoners and those few monsters I shared. And that's data driven conclusions. And that's part of the power of Splinter Coach. So I hope you'll take this seriously and check it out for yourself. $5 a month. And shout out to Splinter Coach. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for helping create content like this. And guys, I'm going to leave it there. Have an amazing day. God bless.